What are the newspapers saying? What are the online publications saying? It's always great to have Mark Heywood, editor of Maverick Citizen, joining us this morning to take a look at those. Mark, hello to you. We'll talk about the Star and the Witness in a moment. First of all, Sona by numbers. No, let me correct myself. Sona by depressing numbers.
Yes, Gareth, as you've already been saying this morning, all media roads also lead to Sona. So the Daily Maverick, I think two critical stories this morning are an economic analysis by Tim Cohen, the business editor, which, as you've said, talks about the depressing economic numbers in terms of investment, public investment, in terms of rising unemployment in South Africa. It's not a pretty picture, but the article is very, very well evidenced and certainly worth a read. And then, kind of as a balance to that, there's an article by Ferial Haffajee based upon responses from the presidency to questions posed to them as to what has President Cyril Ramaphosa done. So if you want to see what the presidency thinks of itself and its achievements, particularly in the context, I think, of a huge amount of criticism and concern about the real state of our nation at the moment, that's a very, very good article to dig into. So that's our two leading articles, I would say.
It is. And just on the second one, Mark, if I could just pick up quickly before we move on to the Star newspaper. So, sixth State of the Nation address. Is it lucky number 6? Is it going to be a new State of the Nation address? It's a new home for now. Is it going to sound any different?
You know, Gareth, it's my personal opinion. I fear not. I think this is possibly the most important State of the Nation address that President Ramaphosa has given. It comes at a time when everybody agrees that the country is in a crisis on multiple fronts. We've never needed leadership more than we need it now. And I think President Ramaphosa has done some very important things, as you'll see in that piece with Ferial Haffajee. But on crucial questions, if the state of the nation is about the state of a nation's people, then some rabbit has to be pulled out of the bag. And it can't be a magic rabbit. It has to be something that gives people hope that there is going to be change and that change will come pretty quickly.
I'm going to ask you as well, just at the end of this, about the social injustices from inaction, Mark. Yep. As many people will know, you in your other life, when you wear your other hats, of course, you were a fighter for the impoverished, a fighter for those who weren't able to voice their opinions. But I'll come back to you on that. Let's just quickly whip through, as I awkwardly try and grab my piece of paper and not drop a very expensive laptop. Let's talk about the Star newspaper quickly. Racist newsman lowered the bar. I thought this was going to get messy, and it has as well. Front story of the Star newspaper.
Well, it has got messy. You know, the fallout from last week's Judicial Services Commission interviews continues. There was a very strong polemical article by News 24 editor Adrian Basson at the weekend. A group of senior advocates, it has to be said that mostly, although there are some very disreputable people, or at least one disreputable person in the list, have written a letter basically accusing Basson of racism. And that's the front page of the Star. You know, what that report doesn't cover is that that's not the only statement that's flying around. There's a statement from the General Counsel of the Bar that came out a few hours later criticizing Dali Mpofu, pointing out that he doesn't represent himself or the EFF when he's at the JSC, that in fact that he represents the bar, the legal profession, and saying that his conduct has been unbecoming of an advocate, and in fact suggesting that he ought to be replaced by the constituent members of the bar. So I think that story is a very, very important one, and will continue as reflected in that headline from the Star.
No, that's right. I'm not going to unpack it too much. I'll just mention it in passing. Security around Cape Town City Hall expected to be very high, of course. Or if you and I had more time, Mark, we talk about the cost of this, but we just don't have time for the moment. But security we'll talk about later on air, by the way, as well. And 34.9% unemployed in the third quarter of 2021 as well. That's what the Star is running with this morning. The Witness, let's touch on this briefly. Government has lost our trust. We're talking as far as business and commerce and infrastructure development in the Witness newspaper this morning.
Yeah, well, that's another very important article. It relates to the expert panel report on the July riots, or whatever language you want to use to describe what happened, the 374 deaths, the billion rand in damage, in looting, etc. And this very, very frank report that essentially lays blame at the door of the cabinet for failing to, first of all, prevent it from taking place, and secondly, when it did take place, from being completely at odds internally as to how to deal with it. And that article is about business, and I think for good reason, saying we can't do business if we can't trust with you, if you don't play open ball with us, etc. And coming from the KZN Chamber of Business and place that was the epicenter of those riots, that is an important issue. And again, an issue that shouldn't be clouded in the discussions around SONA over the next few days. That report, the importance of that report cannot be overstated.
Yeah, it can't be, and it's going to ask the obvious question, what now? It's great to have these reports. What do we do with it? How do we prevent it? Just by the way, before I move away from the witness very quickly, team, can we just flip that one more time? In case you're wondering what that photo is, I know at first glance, if you look at the front page, we'll bring it up for you now. It might be a bit disconcerting what it is. It's actually a plane crash. A 55-year-old man admitted to hospital after his plane crashed in Maryvale. Hope I said that right, near Heywood yesterday. All right, Mark, let's end things off with someone who's been so involved on the ground at the coal face. I'm looking for another cliche of social ills in the country. The president wants to put something in about social ills tomorrow night, 7 p.m. What does Mark Heywood tell him to put in there?
Unequivocally, Mark Heywood and many people like me from within civil society and people concerned about human rights and social justice want the president to announce the commencement of a basic income grant for the millions and millions of people who currently fall outside of our social security system and who are literally starving in our country. It's difficult, it's controversial in a sense, but we don't have any choice. Gareth, I'll give you one figure. There are 12 million people in our country, many of them unemployed adults, whose income per capita monthly falls below the food poverty line of 595 rand per month. We have a duty to do something for those people. As I said, it's difficult to deal with it in 2 minutes, but please, President Ramaphosa, see the merits of a basic income grant, see that it can actually be a path to economic growth and investment rather than the opposite, and do the right thing.
Mark, one could even argue it's a path to just the basics of dignity as well. Mark Heywood,
absolutely.
Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us this morning, looking at the Daily Maverick. 2 great articles there, also the Star, the Witness, and also weighing in. What does Mark Heywood want the president to say tomorrow night, 7 p.m.?